Another rotation. Another batch of overconfident younglings who think the galaxy owes them glory. Kavik had seen thousands of them pass through these halls over the decades. And honestly, most were forgettable. The Valorian Empire paid him handsomely to transform naive recruits into competent tactical officers. And he did his job with the enthusiasm of someone filleting fish for the 40th year straight. Outpost 7's Intergalactic Academy buzzed with the usual chaos of Orientation Week. Species from 40 different worlds crammed into lecture halls, trying not to accidentally poison each other with incompatible atmospheric preferences. The architects had done their best, installing environmental barriers and filtration systems. But you could still smell the sulfur from the Hectarian section mixing with the ammonia preferred by the Yilvans. Delightful. Kavik's third claw tapped against his datapad as he reviewed the roster for advanced combat strategy. Typical mix. A few Thrakans who would rely too heavily on brute strength. Several Blicks who thought their 4 arms gave them an insurmountable advantage. One Yilvan who would probably overthink every scenario into paralysis. And then there was the human, Ren. Just Ren. No house name, no clan designation, no honorifics. Humans apparently kept things simple. He had reviewed her file 3 times, convinced there was an error. Humans were Tier 3 on the Galactic Threat Assessment Scale. Fragile endoskeleton, pathetically thin skin, no natural armor whatsoever, no venom, no claws worth mentioning, no enhanced senses. They required a laughably narrow temperature range to survive, and could be killed by simply denying them oxygen for a few minutes. Bringing one to a combat academy seemed like bringing a glass sculpture to a demolition derby. Yet here she was, enrolled in his advanced class, having somehow passed the preliminary qualifications. The first day arrived with the kind of administrative tedium that made Kavik question his life choices. He stood at the front of the lecture hall, watching students file in and claim their seats. The Thrakans naturally gravitated toward the back, their bulk making the chairs groan in protest. The Blicks scattered throughout, already forming their typical social clusters. The Hectarians kept to themselves, as always. And then Ren walked in. She was small, remarkably, almost offensively small. Kavik stood nearly 3 meters tall, and this human barely reached half that. She wore the standard academy uniform, which hung on her frame like it was designed for someone with actual muscle mass. Her skin was pale, her eyes an unremarkable brown, and her hair tied back in a simple tail. Everything about her screamed prey species. She chose a seat in the middle row, neither hiding in the back nor boldly claiming the front. She sat down, pulled out a datapad, and waited with perfect stillness. That stillness bothered Kavik more than he wanted to admit. "Welcome to Advanced Combat Strategy," he began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had actually fought in the wars these students only read about. "This course will challenge every assumption you have about warfare, survival, and your own capabilities. 60% of you will drop out within the first month. Of those who remain, only half will pass." He let that sink in. Several students shifted uncomfortably. "Good. We begin with fundamentals. The galaxy contains approximately 40,000 documented species. Of these, roughly 800 are classified as apex predators on their homeworlds." He activated the holographic display, and the room filled with 3-dimensional images of creatures that would haunt nightmares. You need to understand what you might face in hostile territory. The first image showed a Vex predator, all rippling muscle and serrated fangs, frozen mid-leap. Several students flinched. The Yilvan made a small noise of distress. Ren leaned forward slightly, studying the image with the intensity of someone reading a technical manual. "The Vex predator," Kavik continued, is a Class 4 threat. It hunts in packs, demonstrates tool use capability, and has successfully killed members of 16 different species. Standard protocol when encountering one is immediate retreat and calling for backup with heavy weapons. He cycled through more images. A draconite with its acidic saliva, a thornback with its poisonous spines, a ghost maw that could phase partially out of normal space to ambush prey. Each image elicited appropriate fear responses from the class. Elevated heart rates, defensive postures, widened eyes, except from Ren. She took notes. Her expression never changed. She looked at apex predators the way Kavik looked at his breakfast, with mild interest and nothing resembling appropriate terror. Odd. The first week proceeded normally. Kavik lectured on tactical theory, supply line logistics, terrain advantages, and psychological warfare. The students absorbed information at varying rates. The Thrakans struggled with concepts requiring subtlety. The Blix excelled at multi-front scenarios. The Yilvan asked excellent questions, but hesitated when quick decisions were required. Ren remained perfectly average in every measurable way. She completed assignments on time. She participated in discussions without dominating them. She worked adequately with teammates during group exercises. Nothing about her performance justified Kavik's nagging sense that something was fundamentally wrong with this picture. On the 8th day, they moved to the practical training facility for their first live exercise. Nothing dangerous, just a simulation requiring students to work in pairs to breach a fortified position using minimal resources. Standard stuff. Kavik paired Ren with Boruk, a Thrakan student who had the raw power of a small tank, but the tactical finesse of that same tank rolling downhill. The mismatch was intentional. Kavik wanted to see how the human handled working with someone who would naturally dominate any partnership. Your objective is simple, Kavik explained to the assembled class. Reach the far end of the training course and retrieve the target item. You have access to basic tools and equipment. Use whatever strategy you deem appropriate. Time limit is 15 minutes. Begin. The pairs scattered into the facility, which was essentially a warehouse filled with obstacles, barriers, and simulated defensive systems. Kavik monitored their progress through the observation deck, watching feeds from dozens of cameras. Most teams performed predictably. Lots of direct approaches, some clever uses of available equipment, a few arguments between partners with incompatible ideas. Standard training exercise results. Then he noticed the feed showing Ren and Boruk. The Thrakan was doing what Thrakans do, attempting to simply bash through obstacles with brute force. It was working slowly, but it was working. Ren stood back, watching, observing. She made no attempt to stop Boruk or suggest alternatives. She simply studied how the obstacles responded to his attacks, how the defensive systems tracked movement, how the environmental factors affected different approaches. After Boruk exhausted himself breaking through the third barrier, Ren spoke quietly to him. Kavik increased the audio on that feed. The next section has pressure sensors on the floor, she said matter-of-factly. But the ceiling support beams are exposed. If you boost me up, I can traverse above the sensors and disable them from the control panel on the far side. Boruk grunted agreement, too tired to argue. He lifted Ren as easily as lifting a small tool, and she grabbed the support beam with surprising grip strength. Then she proceeded to move across the ceiling with fluid efficiency, reaching the control panel and deactivating the sensors in under 30 seconds. They completed the course in 8 minutes. Fastest time of the day. Interesting. The incident happened on day 12. Kavik was conducting a lecture on predator behavior patterns, using live specimens in secure containment fields to demonstrate various attack strategies. The facility maintained a collection of juvenile predators for exactly this purpose, all safely behind force fields strong enough to hold a small spacecraft. Until they weren't. Later investigation would reveal that Boruk had accidentally bumped into a control console while adjusting his seating. A cascade of unfortunate system glitches followed. Backup protocols failed to engage. And suddenly, a juvenile Vex predator stood in the middle of the classroom, free from containment, confused and immediately aggressive. The creature was only juvenile by Vex standards, which meant it still massed around 200 kilograms of pure muscle, fang, and killing instinct. Its scales rippled black and deep purple, and its 6 eyes immediately locked onto the nearest source of movement, a Blick student in the front row. Time seemed to fracture into slow motion. The Vex predator coiled its powerful legs. The Blick student froze in terror. Kavik's hand moved toward his neural disruptor. Every other student began scrambling for the exits in a chaotic stampede. And Ren stood up, grabbed the broken leg of a nearby chair that had been knocked over in the panic, and stepped directly into the predator's path. What happened next would replay in Kavik's mind for the rest of his very long life. And he would never quite believe it, even having witnessed it firsthand. Retried, the Vex predator launched itself forward with a speed that should have meant instant death for anything in its path. Kavik watched, his weapon halfway drawn, fully expecting to witness his first student fatality in 15 years. Ren moved, not away, sideways, a tight, economical shift of her body weight that put her exactly where the predator was not. The creature's claws raked empty air, where her torso had been a fraction of a second earlier. She pivoted on her back foot, using the predator's own momentum to create distance without wasting energy on unnecessary movement. The broken chair leg came up defensively, not to strike, but to establish a barrier. The predator landed, skidded slightly on the smooth floor, and whipped around with a snarl that vibrated through the entire room. "Easy," Ren said, her voice quiet but firm. "Easy now." Was she talking to it? Was this human actually attempting communication with an enraged predator? The Vex lunged again, faster this time, jaws wide enough to engulf her entire head. Ren dropped low, impossibly low, her legs bending in ways Kavik did not think human joints allowed. The predator sailed over her. She rolled forward, came up near its flank, and did something completely insane. She touched it. Just a brief contact on its shoulder, but the predator recoiled as if struck. Not from pain, from surprise. It spun to face her again, and Kavik saw something shift in its posture. The creature was reevaluating, recalculating. This prey was not behaving correctly. "You are hurt," Ren observed, still in that calm, steady tone. She gestured with her free hand toward the predator's rear leg, where Kavik now noticed a slight irregularity in its gait. "That back left leg, you are favoring it. Someone did not treat you properly." The predator circled her, wary now instead of aggressive. Its 6 eyes tracked her movements with hyper-focused intensity. Ren circled with it, maintaining distance, keeping her makeshift weapon ready, but not threatening. "I know you are scared," she continued, as if having a casual conversation. "New place, strange smells, loud noises. Then suddenly your cage opens and everyone starts screaming. That would frighten me too." Kavik should intervene. Protocol demanded immediate lethal response to containment breaches. But he found himself frozen, watching something unprecedented unfold. The other students had evacuated. Security was en route. He had perhaps 90 seconds before they arrived with heavy weapons and turned this creature into burnt matter. Wren stopped circling. She slowly lowered herself into a crouch, making herself smaller, less threatening. The chair leg rested across her knees, available but not raised. "See?" she said softly. "No threat here. Just another creature trying to get through the day without dying. Same as you." The Vex predator tilted its head, a gesture that looked almost curious. Then it did something that made Kavik question his sanity. It sat down. Not a hunting crouch, not a pre-attack position. It simply sat, like a trained animal waiting for instruction. Wren smiled. Actually smiled. Then she slowly reached toward the emergency supply cabinet mounted on the nearby wall, moving with deliberate transparency so the predator could track every motion. She retrieved a medical kit, opened it with exaggerated slowness, and pulled out a basic wound treatment applicator. "May I?" she asked the predator, holding up the applicator. The creature made a low rumbling sound, not aggressive, almost questioning. Wren took that as permission. She approached carefully, still moving with that same deliberate transparency, and knelt beside the injured leg. The predator tensed but did not strike. She examined the wound, a nasty gash that had been poorly sealed and was clearly causing pain. "Sloppy work," she muttered, applying the treatment gel with practiced efficiency. "Whoever did this initial seal should be ashamed. There, that will feel better soon." The security team burst through the door, weapons charged and ready, and found a scene that defied all logic. A juvenile Vex predator sitting calmly, a human treating its wounds, and Kavik standing motionless, his disruptor still holstered, staring at his student like she had just revealed herself as a reality-warping entity from beyond known space. "Stand down," Kavik ordered the security team, his voice hoarse. "Situation is under control." Kavik's office had never felt smaller. Wren sat in the chair across from his desk, looking perfectly comfortable despite being flanked by Academy Administrator Ylva and Security Director Torg. Both officials radiated the kind of tension usually reserved for diplomatic incidents that might trigger interstellar wars. "Explain," Kavik said flatly. "And I mean explain everything. Because what I witnessed defies 4 decades of combat experience and every known xenobiology text in the galactic database." Wren shrugged. A gesture Kavik had learned meant humans were downplaying something significant. "I read the situation and responded appropriately. The predator was scared and injured, not genuinely hunting. Big difference." "Big difference?" Torg's voice crackled with barely controlled fury. His species communicated partly through electrical discharges, and right now the air smelled of ozone. That creature has a documented kill count of 6 sentient beings across 3 species. You treated it like a domestic animal." "Well," Wren said thoughtfully, "on Earth, we do keep similar creatures as companions. Slightly smaller, different physiology, but the behavioral patterns are remarkably consistent across predator species once you understand the basics. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Ylva recovered first, her translator struggling with the harmonics of her disbelief. You keep apex predators as companions? Voluntarily, in your living spaces? Oh, constantly. We domesticated wolves about 15,000 years ago. Turned our direct competitors into our best friends. Now we have hundreds of breeds, from tiny lapdogs to massive working animals that can pull sleds across frozen wastelands. We sleep beside them. Let them around our children. They are family." Kavik felt something cold settle in his chest. "You domesticated wolves. You are telling me your species took creatures that hunted you and convinced them to live in your dens. Technically, there is debate about whether we domesticated them or they domesticated us for easy food access, Wren said with another shrug. Either way, it worked out. We also domesticated cats, which still barely tolerate us. Horses, which are large enough to kill us with a single kick. Some cultures domesticated elephants, massive creatures weighing several tons. Others kept venomous snakes as pest control. Humans are really good at befriending things that should probably eat us. Torg made a sound like electrical short circuit. How did your species survive to develop space travel? Persistence, Wren answered simply. And pattern recognition. Earth is what you might call a high-difficulty world. Nearly everything on it evolved to kill us. We were not the strongest or fastest or most dangerous. We were just stubborn and adaptable. We learned to read predator behavior because we had to. We studied their body language, their hunting patterns, their social structures. We had to think differently because we could not win through strength alone. Kavik leaned forward. Prove it. Prove you can read patterns as you claim. All right. Wren gestured toward him. You are about to stand up, move 3 steps to your left, and activate the security console behind that panel. You have been glancing at it every 40 seconds since we started talking. Your weight keeps shifting onto your right leg in preparation to rise, and your primary hand keeps drifting toward the panel's location. Kavik froze. He had been planning exactly that, preparing to pull up the incident footage for review. Administrator Ylva, Wren continued without pause, you are considering calling your supervisor because this situation exceeds your authority protocols. You keep touching your communication device with your secondary manipulator, then stopping yourself. 3 times in the last 2 minutes. Ylva's bioluminescent patches flared with surprise. And, Director Torg, you are actually less concerned than you appear. Your electrical discharge decreased in intensity over the last 5 minutes as you realized I genuinely meant no harm. Your species uses aggression displays for protocol, but your true emotional state shows in the frequency of those discharges, not the amplitude. Torg's electrical field stuttered completely. Wren smiled politely. Humans are very good at reading faces and body language. We evolved to hunt prey by tracking tiny behavioral cues over vast distances. We can recognize micro-expressions that reveal true emotional states beneath social facades. It is a survival trait. When you cannot win fights through strength, you win by understanding your opponent better than they understand themselves. Kavik sat back down slowly. What else should we know about humans? Well, Wren said thoughtfully, we are also persistence hunters. Our ancestors would chase prey for days, sometimes weeks, until the animal literally collapsed from exhaustion. We are not fast, but we do not stop. Ever. We can regulate our body temperature through sweating, which lets us run in heat that would kill most species. We heal from injuries that would be fatal to others. We can survive on almost any organic matter if desperate enough. And we have this unfortunate habit of looking at dangerous situations and asking ourselves, what if we tried something absolutely insane? News spread through Outpost 7 like plasma fire through oxygen-rich atmosphere. The human who faced a Vex predator. The fragile Tier 3 species member who did the impossible. Within 2 days, Kavik received 47 transfer requests into his Advanced Combat Strategy course. He also received 32 requests for transfers out. He approved none of them. This required further investigation. On the 15th day, Kavik arrived at his office early and found Wren already waiting outside his door. She held 2 cups of something steaming. The smell was unfamiliar, but oddly pleasant. "Coffee?" she explained, offering him one. "Human stimulant beverage. Thought you might need it. I hear you have been reviewing incident reports all night." He accepted the cup cautiously. "How did you know that?" "You have the data pad marks on your secondary manipulator where you gripped it too long. Your eyes show fatigue patterns. And the maintenance staff mentioned seeing your office lights on until dawn cycle. Pattern recognition." Kavik sipped the coffee. It was bitter, hot, and somehow exactly what he needed. "Come inside. We need to talk." His office felt different with her in it, less like a command center and more like a research laboratory examining a fascinating specimen. He activated his primary display terminal and pulled up a series of files. "These are tactical scenarios," he explained. "They are used to train elite military operatives across 17 different species. Each scenario presents a problem with limited resources and significant constraints. Most teams of specialists require 3 to 4 hours to develop adequate solutions. I want you to attempt them." Ren set down her coffee and studied the first scenario. A hostage situation on a station with failing life support. Multiple hostile forces, minimal weapons, civilian casualties unacceptable. She solved it in 4 minutes. Her solution involved using the failing life support as a weapon, creating controlled atmospheric variations that would incapacitate the hostiles without killing the hostages. She mapped out precise timing sequences, identified key choke points, and outlined a psychological approach that would convince the hostiles they were winning right up until they lost consciousness. Kavik stared at the solution. It was unconventional, risky, and absolutely brilliant. "Next one," he said, his voice tight. The second scenario involved defending a colony against overwhelming military forces with only civilian equipment and untrained personnel. Standard doctrine called for evacuation or surrender. Ren rejected both options. Her solution weaponized farming equipment, turned industrial machinery into improvised artillery, and outlined a guerrilla strategy that would make the invasion so costly that any rational military force would withdraw. She identified psychological pressure points, supply line vulnerabilities, and tactical advantages in terrain that Kavik had not even noticed in his own analysis. 7 minutes. The third scenario was deliberately unsolvable. A ship with catastrophic damage, no functioning escape systems, and a crew of mixed species with incompatible environmental requirements. It was designed to teach officers how to make triage decisions under impossible circumstances. Ren looked at it for 30 seconds, then started talking. "You seal the engineering section with the Hectarians inside because they can survive the toxic atmosphere from the damaged reactor. You move all oxygen-breathing species to the cargo bay, which still has intact hull plating. You vent every other section to space, which gives you approximately 40 minutes of breathable air instead of 20. You cannibalize the medical bay equipment to build basic life support for the cargo bay. You use the emergency beacon components to create a short-range transmitter boost. And you send a distress signal with precise coordinates. Then you put everyone into medically induced low-oxygen states to extend survival time." She paused, meeting Kavik's eyes directly. "The ship is gone. You cannot save the ship. But you can save the crew if you stop trying to fix what cannot be fixed and focus on what can. Humans are very good at accepting terrible situations and finding the least terrible option available." Kavik felt something shift in his understanding of the galaxy. "How? How does your species think like this?" Ren leaned back in her chair, considering the question seriously. "Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. Everything on our planet was better, equipped for survival than we were. Stronger predators, faster prey, better camouflage, better senses, better natural weapons. We had none of those advantages. What we had was the ability to look at any situation and ask, what if the rules do not apply? What if we try something nobody expects? What if we turn our weakness into strength? She picked up her coffee cup, cradling it in both hands. We learned to throw rocks with precision that let us hunt from distances other predators could not match. We learned to run prey to exhaustion over days because we could sweat and they could not. We learned to cook food, which let us extract more nutrition and spend less energy digesting. We learned to make fire, which terrified every other creature on the planet. We learned to cooperate in groups larger than any other species, coordinating hundreds or thousands of individuals toward single goals. Her expression grew distant, thoughtful. But more than any of that, we learned to be creative with desperation. When a human has no good options, they invent new options. When the rules say something is impossible, humans question whether those rules really apply. When facing overwhelming force, humans look for the angle nobody else considered. It is not intelligence, exactly. It is more like structured insanity. The willingness to try things that seem ridiculous, because maybe, just maybe, ridiculous might work. Kevik set down his datapad carefully. I need to file a report with the Intergalactic Council. About me. About your entire species. He pulled up a new file and began typing. Humanity's threat assessment needs immediate revision, not because you are physically dangerous, though that incident proved you can be, but because you are mentally unpredictable in ways the galaxy has never encountered. Ren raised an eyebrow. Is that good or bad? I genuinely do not know, Kavik admitted. The galaxy has spent eons cataloging species by their physical capabilities. Claws, fangs, venom, armor, strength, speed. We've built entire military doctrines around quantifiable physical threats. Nobody prepared us for a species whose primary weapon is looking at established reality and asking, but what if we just ignored that? He finished typing and sent the report with a sense of doing something momentous and possibly catastrophic. You are dismissed for today, he told Ren, but I expect you back tomorrow. We have much to discuss about human tactical philosophy. Ren stood, collected her empty coffee cup, and headed for the door. She paused at the threshold. For what it matters, that Vex predator is doing much better. Medical staff says the leg will heal completely. They asked if I wanted to help with its rehabilitation therapy. And what did you say? I said yes, obviously. Poor thing needs someone who understands it. She grinned. Besides, I always wanted a pet that could actually eat someone who annoyed me. Just kidding. Mostly. She left, and Kavik sat alone in his office, staring at the closed door. Somewhere in the facility, a human was probably teaching an apex predator to sit and stay. Somewhere in the galaxy, military strategists would read his report and realize their threat models were dangerously incomplete. And somewhere in the vast universe, humanity was spreading outward with their absolutely insane approach to problem solving. Kavik reached for his coffee cup and drained the last bitter drops. The galaxy was about to get very, very interesting. 3 weeks later, Ren graduated top of her class. The Vex Predator attended the ceremony, wearing a decorative collar and sitting obediently at her feet. Boruk brought it treats. Nobody questioned this anymore. When asked about her plans after graduation, Ren smiled, that calm, calculating smile that Kavik had learned to find deeply concerning. I thought I might start a program, she said casually. Teaching other species how humans approach tactical problems. Cross-species cooperation through creative thinking. Kavik imagined an entire generation of galactic officers learning to think like humans, to question established rules, to try the ridiculous when the conventional failed, to befriend their predators and weaponize their weaknesses. He was not sure whether to feel proud or terrified. Possibly both. Definitely both. That sounds like an excellent idea, he heard himself say, because apparently he had caught whatever madness humans carried. Ren's smile widened. Great. I already submitted the proposal. You are listed as faculty advisor. Of course she had. Of course. Kavik watched her walk away, the Vex predator trotting beside her like a loyal hound, and realized something profound about the universe. Humanity had not just survived their death world. They had thrived on it. And now they were bringing that survival philosophy to the galaxy. The established powers would adapt or fall behind. The old rules would bend or break. And every species would need to learn the most important lesson humanity had mastered over millions of years of desperate survival. Sometimes, the craziest idea is the only idea that works.